Hello and welcome back to Football League World TV. It's time for the afternoon roundup on this EFL deadline day. I'm your host, George Dagless, and joining me are Ned Holmes and Ben Wignall with just under 7 hours to go in the EFL transfer window. Ned, how are you getting on? How have you found the day so far?
Yeah, good. Thanks, mate. Been really busy. Also, sort of coincided with the release of our Football League World fans League One Player of the Month nominee. So it's been a busy one for me.
Yeah, it's all been going on. Ben, how have you found it? I noticed no Jim White-esque yellow tie on at the moment, so you've swerved that one.
Yeah, no, I'm on the on the late stuff tonight, so I imagine it'll get very busy around 9, 10 o'clock when everyone's trying to push deals through. And obviously, there's been quite a few deals done already, and I just think it's going to get even busier and hectic as we get close to 11 o'clock.
Yeah, it's all just starting to bubble up nicely towards the climax at 11 p.m. this evening. Let's get into a done deal, first of all. And we start with Berahino in the last 15 minutes or so. He's joined Sheffield Wednesday, previously at Zorta Waregem in Belgium. Hopefully I've got that pronunciation right. But obviously we know him better for stints at the likes of West Brom and Stoke City. Ned, will come to you straight away with this one first of all. Berahino to Sheffield Wednesday, obviously knows manager Darren Moore particularly well. Do you think Moore is the right man to sort of get the best out of Berahino, and perhaps we're going to start seeing a little bit more from him back in this country?
Yeah, I mean, you'd hope so. Obviously, Moore knows him from his time at West Brom, and for a large part of that, it was a positive time at West Brom. That's where he emerged. That's where we all were excited by his talent. Before when things turned a bit sour, and that move eventually away from English football was something he needed. I think something that's going to be key as well is that more in the likes of Lee Gregory, who's firing at the moment. Darren Moore does have options, inform options at the moment, so he can take his time bringing Berahino in. There's not going to be loads of pressure heaped on him straight away, and I think that could be key in getting him back to his best and maybe seeing him, fulfill that potential that we saw as a young player.
Earlier today, it was reported that Sheffield Wednesday ideally wanted to add one more body, most notably a striker. They've obviously done that now with Berahino arriving, Ben. But for you, is he the right striker they needed to be going after? Obviously, the likes of Lee Gregory has already arrived this summer. Sheffield Wednesday have actually ended up being quite busy in the transfer window. But for you, is Berahino the kind of player and the kind of attacker they needed to sort of round out this transfer market this summer?
I think so, yeah. Obviously, the signings they've made up front, the likes of Gregory, Canberra, big target men strikers, and Berahino, obviously, we've not seen a lot of him in the last few years because he's been in Belgium, but he should still have a bit of pace about him. We all know he's got technical ability. He showed that in abundance at West Brom. Obviously, that was about 7 years ago now. But you'd say that League One's probably a drop to the Belgium top flight. So I think there'll be a lot of competition for places. You've got Gregory, Canberra, Callum Patterson, and then I think Josh Windass has still got to come back. And Darren Moore seems to be playing with one up front, mainly in like a 4-2-3-1. So I wouldn't imagine he's going to be thrown straight away in as a starter, but he's definitely going to be a good option. And when he gets up to speed with Moore's way of playing, I think he should be a player that will score a lot of goals in League One if his head's switched on.
Yeah, I mean, in the end, it's been quite a productive transfer window for Sheffield Wednesday. Obviously, a few concerns going into it, but they managed to do well to sort of reshape that squad. Just briefly, Ned, before we move on, if it sort of ends now for Sheffield Wednesday transfer window, why do you think they can be happy with what they've done in the market?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, as you say, there was some worrying. Well, it was just worryingly quiet for the first, period in the window. But I think what Darren Moore's done is reinforced his squad with some sort of known quality and a few players that seem a bit of a risk. But if they do come off, then it could prove to be a masterstroke. And I do think Berahino is among those.
Okay, brilliant. Okay, next up we move to another done deal involving Swansea City, and it all seems to be kicking off in that part of South Wales at the moment. So early this afternoon, Connor Roberts has sealed his exit from Swansea City. He's heading to the Premier League and Burnley. Arguably one of Swansea's best players in the last few years, Ben. What do you make of this transfer, and how much of a concern is it for the Swans to see someone of Roberts' quality leave at this late stage in the market?
Yeah, it won't be nice for them because he's obviously been at the Liberty Stadium for a while. I think they're well covered in the sense that they've got Ethan Laird on loan from Manchester United to cover him. That signing might have been a notice that they expected him to leave before the end of the window, but with his contract situation, as well as someone we'll talk about in a minute, Matt Grimes, it's not great business from a Swansea perspective to let those contracts run down with less than a year remaining. So I think it was kind of inevitable, a player of Roberts' quality, one of the best full-backs in the league, that he would move on. And I think it's a good move for Burnley, but I think it's around 2.5 million, isn't it, that Swansea have got for him. It's a bit of a snip, really, and obviously you can't, with his contract situation, you can't expect too much in the way of a transfer fee. But Swansea fans will be disappointed, and I think there's talk of incomings elsewhere on the pitch, but Laird will only be there for a season. He'll go back to Man United, so it's a position they'll have to look at next season. But yeah, it'll be a disappointing one for Swansea fans to see a Welsh lad like him, Wales international, very talented, to see him go.
Ned, just coming to you as well. Obviously, Roberts is off to Burnley. How well do you expect him to do in the Premier League under Sean Dyche?
Well, I mean, I think he's got a lot of attributes that the Dyche is going to like. He's a player that will, put a lot into it. He'll run hard, and he's certainly got a good delivery, which is obviously going to get the likes of those big guys like Barnes and co interested. But I do think we've seen him thrive best in a wing back position mostly, and that's not necessarily a system that we've seen. I don't think Sean Dyche play a huge amount of. So that sort of conversion is going to be interesting, as is just the adaptation to the Premier League in general. So it's going to be an interesting one to watch. I don't think there's any reason why he can't cut it at that level, though.
Okay. Yeah, as I mentioned, plenty going on at Swansea. We'll get on to some more moving and shaking in South Wales now. So earlier on in FLW TV's morning transfer show, myself and Ned discussed Jamal Lowe's exit to Bournemouth. There's still plenty going on at Swansea. We'll start with a potential incoming, Olivier Ncham, formerly at Celtic midfielder. He's having a medical ahead of a move to the Liberty Stadium. Obviously, being a free doesn't have to get done before the deadline, but all being well, they'll be able to get it through pretty shortly. Ben, what do you make of this one? Is he the sort of midfield addition that Swansea need to make?
He's definitely got a lot of technical ability. Russell Morton likes to play with like a 5-3-2, like a 5-4-1. He played two attacking midfielders behind Piero on Saturday, and you'd imagine he would slot into there in his lineup. But I think a lot of Celtic fans in the last few years anyway have been quite critical of Ncham's commitment and desire, like his work rate as well. So if Swansea fans are going to expect someone who's like very committed to the cause, will give everything to his shirt, I don't think that's the kind of player he's going to be, but he's someone who's got a lot of technical ability. He's showed it in the top flight in Scotland and in Europe as well. So he's kind of a gamble in a sense. I imagine he'll be on quite decent wages for the Championship, and if he did have a bit more of a work ethic and desire, he might have got a move to like a top flight, like a Premier League club or somewhere abroad. So I'm 50-50 on this one. He's obviously got a lot of ability, but I'm not sure he's got like the right work ethic. But we'll soon see when he signs. But I'm sure he'll get a few goals from him and a few assists.
Now this all ties in potentially with the exit of Matt Grimes from Swansea. Fulham have made a new bid. The Cottagers have been regularly linked with a move for Matt Grimes this summer. Obviously, so far they've been unsuccessful in their attempts, but they've made another bid this afternoon to try and get him into the Cottage. For you, Ned, sort of two questions really to this one. Is Ncham going to be the ideal sort of replacement for Matt Grimes? Because that's what it's looking like at the moment. And how well do you expect him to do if he does move to Fulham and if this deal does go through?
I mean, on the Ncham one, it's a difficult one, really. I'm not sure he looks to me a real like-for-like replacement. As Ben said, there have been questions about his commitment in the past and just like how much he's going to give. And what Swansea fans would have seen of Matt Grimes over the years is that he's given absolutely everything for that white shirt. I'm not sure we're going to see the same. You've got to, there's a suggestion that there's a reason that he's still a free agent, and I would be concerned if Russell Martin is expecting him to come and marshal that midfield in the same way. But, this is another one of those ones that if it comes off and he certainly has the technical ability to fit the sort of ball-playing system that Martin's going to want to play, it could turn out well. In terms of Grimes, you've got to think this is the next domino to fall after Anguissa has moved to Napoli. Is it a completely necessary move given the options they've got? I'm not sure. But what Fulham look to be doing is ensuring they've got real quality and real depth in their squad. And, in a battle for that top two, which Fulham are clearly going to be doing, an automatic promotion, given how congested we know the EFL season can be, that sort of quality and depth could be absolutely massive. And I can really see him thriving at Craven Cottage.
Okay, still a few hours left for that one to play out, but we could well see N'Cham arrive at Swansea and Matt Grimes swap Swansea for Fulham. Moving on to Marlon Romeo. Now, the Millwall defender has not played as much as he potentially would have liked for Millwall recently, and it looks like he could move on towards the end of this summer window. Has been linked with moves to Ipswich and Portsmouth on a loan deal. Ned, you've seen plenty of Millwall so far this season. Are you that surprised by the fact that Romeo might be moving on? Obviously, the likes of Danny McNamara and Dan Ballard have gone in there and potentially made it a little bit more difficult for Romeo to get some playing time. So how surprised would you be if he did see a late loan exit from the club?
I wouldn't be hugely surprised, to be honest. He's tumbled down the pecking order a little. McNamara first pushing him out, and then, as you say, Ballard sort of slotting in there at times as well. He does seem to be someone that isn't trusted as much by Gary Rowett this season and sort of late last season as he has been in the past. And in that sense, I think, it seems that you do think they'd be open to sort of sending him away from the club.
Okay. Just Ben, for you, I just want to touch on Ipswich. Obviously, they've been very, very busy so far in the transfer window. Do you think they necessarily need to add another player in Marlon Romeo? I mean, they're getting linked with other names as well, the likes of Sam Morsey as well, Middlesbrough. They've been credited with late interest in. Do Ipswich just need to sit on their hands at this point in the window?
Well, I didn't expect them to make many more signings the other day, and then they came out and signed Walter and Selena. So I think they've made 18 now. But the one position they've not strengthened this summer is right back. They've stuck with Kane, Vincent Young, and Donatian. And I think Vincent Young's had a lot of injury problems in the last few years, even though he's quite talented. So it wouldn't actually surprise me if Cook tries to push for a deal for Romeo. He'd definitely be very, very talented in League One. And I think Portsmouth as well have registered interest, and Danny Cowley must be probably sick at the side of Ipswich because they've battled for, I think, George Edmondson, Joe Morel, and I think they had a deal sorted as well to go to Ipswich, aren't they, for them to pull out. For Romeo, though, I think it would be a good signing for Ipswich. He'd bring a lot more competition to that role. I'm just worried about them as a whole team, really. They've not got a win this season so far, and they've signed a lot of players in the attacking areas as well. I think Cook might struggle to keep them all happy with the amount of options he's got. Obviously as well, Sam Morsey still being linked. He could provide a lot of experience at League One level, but there has been a lot of changes. I am worried, regardless if Romeo comes in to strengthen it. I am worried about them this season from what I've seen so far.
Yeah, they've certainly been very active, but it could take a while, perhaps naturally, for that Ipswich team to gel. Okay, we'll move away from Marlon Romeo Millwall, but we'll keep in the capital with a couple of deals potentially at QPR. We start with a potential incoming at the Kyron Prince Foundation. It's looking pretty nailed on now. Andre Gray is going to arrive on loan from Watford. I think potentially a very exciting signing for Rangers. Another attacking addition to help the likes of Lyndon Dykes and Charlie Austin up top. Ned, you've seen a fair bit of QPR already this year. How good a signing could Gray be? And is he the sort of last piece in the jigsaw for QPR this summer, who really have had a very good window?
I think he's certainly the last piece of the jigsaw in Mark Warburton's mind. That's what it seems to be anyway. Speaking in the press conference after the win against Coventry City on Saturday, I was there in West London. He was pressed on sort of, if that one player that could give them a bit more pace and power in behind, someone that will make those runs, if they were available and it fit in his budget, would he move for it? And he was pretty open in saying yes, that's exactly what he would do if it would work out. He refused to be tempted to talk about Gray. He said he's a Watford player, but it now seems that they're pursuing that. I think it looks a good move for me. I mean, he scored goals a lot at Championship level in the past, but obviously he's not been prolific in recent seasons. But QPR have already got a sort of a nice mix of striking options. So to add Gray, along the likes of Willock, who I think this could be a huge season for, Dykes, who's in great season, then obviously the experienced Austin, I think it gives Warburton a real balance, and it means he can, make those changes when different things are needed to unlock different defences.
Yeah, on paper it looks a very good signing for the Hoops. In saying that, there's another sort of side deal to this. It's probably going to get triggered off, providing Gray does arrive. Young striker Charlie Kelman's going to head out on loan. Both Gillingham and Wimbledon are in for his services, so it looks like a League One stint could be on the cards for him for the rest of this season. Ben, for you, is that a good move for Kelman? He's obviously been at Southend United where he did very well and got his move to QPR. Naturally, he's not played as much at Rangers since then, with the likes of Austin and Dykes in front of him in the pecking order. But potentially this is a good step in terms of his progression.
Yeah, I think he'll need this season in League One if he does get a move to show what he's about. He did do it for Southend, which is why he got his move to QPR, and it'll be much better for him playing a full season of senior football rather than playing for the under-23s. I could probably see him fitting in a bit better at Gillingham than Wimbledon, only just because Wimbledon have already got a few loan strikers this season. They've got Depo Mabuda from Watford and Presley from Brentford, whereas Gillingham, he's probably got a better chance to play. They've got Verdane Oliver, who scored a lot of goals last season, but they're probably lacking a kind of a foil next to him, a small striker who's got a bit of pace, and that's what Kelman can offer. So if he does head there or another League One club, I think he's definitely a striker who's got potential to score like 15, 20 goals a season if he's given the opportunity.
Okay, yeah, potentially a very exciting opportunity for Kelman. So we'll see what happens if he does end up in League One. Keeping in League One and strikers, it could well be possible that Will Grigg's going to be on the move before the deadline. Grigg has obviously had a pretty tough time at Sunderland. I think that's fair to say, and there's a potential for him to move away. Both Rotherham United and Charlton Athletic are being linked with a late swoop for Grigg. Let's go to you, Ned, first of all, from the Charlton angle. Obviously, they've got Jayden Stockley up front, who arrived on loan in the January window last season, did very well. They've made that deal permanent, and he started fairly decently again this season, but potentially behind Stockley in terms of real out-and-out centre forwards. Charlton, they have someone like Ronnie Schwartz. Obviously, Connor Washington's there, but he can run the channels more and sometimes plays out a little bit wider. Do you think Will Grigg is a good option and someone that Charlton perhaps need to add before the end of the window?
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's an option that's going to really excite the Addicks fans. I think it's one that they'll be concerned about, given his struggles at Sunderland. But the other side of the coin is that, we saw that a fresh start did him wonders with MK Dons, 8 goals in 20 games. That's the same that he scored in his whole time at Sunderland. And I think it's certainly, we've talked so many times about how important it is to have that depth, given how busy the EFL season can be, and particularly how congested that League One table looks. If Stockley were to go down now, you'd think that could have catastrophic, impact on Charlton's hopes this season. And having someone like Will Grigg there as a backup or covering competition really for Stockley could be massive. And similar to, I guess, what we said about Berahino, it's that they've already got that number one striker in there, and it gives the likes of Grigg a chance to sort of settle without too much pressure on him. And if Adkins can get him back playing the way he was, we know that he can tear up League One. We've seen him do it in the past. So, I don't think it's as bad a move as a lot of Charlton fans would maybe be worried it is, and it could turn out to be one that's just actually quite a sound one, as long as they're not paying too much money for him.
For you, Ben, obviously, Rotherham, the other team, getting linked with Will Grigg. Same question, really. Is he worth a punt? Is he the sort of player that, provided he can find some form, could help fire Rotherham straight back into the Championship this season?
I think so. Yeah, he proved last season when he spent the second half of the season at MK Dons that he still got the scoring touch. I think he's got 8 goals for them. So they've got Michael Smith and Ladapo up front at the minute, and he would provide some very good depth if he can find his feet. And I think Paul Warren's a manager that could motivate him to get the best out of him. And also, it's a little bit closer to the Midlands, where he's trying to get back towards his family. That's really the reason why he wants to get out of Sunderland. But I think if he does end up at Rotherham over Charlton or Doncaster as well, they've been linked. I think he can play a big part in trying to get them back to the Championship. He's obviously got the experience of years gone by at the likes of MK Dons and Wigan. So again, like Ned said, providing they're not paying too much wages, I think I can't see any League One clubs paying the whole wages on at Sunderland. But yeah, I can see him having an impact at any other League One team that wants him, Rotherham included.
Okay, could well be worth a punt. Okay, before we wrap up this show, we are obviously live, so we'll just take a quick look at some of the transfer stories that have broken in the last 20 minutes or so and run through them. We'll start with Emil Kraft. Fulham are in talks to potentially sign the fullback from Newcastle United. Ned, what do you make of this one?
Yeah, I mean, it's just ticking a box really for Fulham. Cyrus Christie is a player that Marco Silva has come out and said that he doesn't fancy him. He's not part of his plans moving forward, and that he's been looking. That Christie himself has been trying to source a move away from Craven Cottage for a few weeks now. Adori played it right back on the weekend. I think he did a good job there, and he's a good option at Championship level. But we don't yet know how long Kenny Tete is actually going to be out for, and adding a bit more depth for me seems like a really smart move.
Okay, another story to have broken in the last few minutes. Sunderland youngster Jack Diamond is set for a loan spell at Harrogate Town. Lee Johnson earlier on in the summer did say that he would be considering loan moves for Diamond, given that he's not played as much as he perhaps would have liked and would have needed to progress. Ben, what do you make of this one? A good switch and potentially a very exciting move for Harrogate in League Two.
Yeah, I think the Harrogate had a Josh McPake from Rangers last season who made quite a good impact, and they'll be expecting Diamond to do the same. He's got a lot of competition at Sunderland, obviously the likes of McGeady and Gooch already there. I think he got a few chances under Johnson last season, but it's been made pretty clear that he will be down the pecking order this season. So if he have a very good season in League Two, that'll open some more options to him next season, whether that is at Sunderland or someone else.
Okay, one final one involving Jacob Murphy at Cardiff. Multiple Championship clubs have inquired over his potential for a loan deal. Sorry, I said Jacob Murphy, I meant Josh Murphy. Ned, what do you make of this one? Do you think Cardiff should let him go, or do you think it's worth trying to keep hold of him at this late stage?
I mean, it's an interesting one. I'd probably be tempted to keep hold of him. I think maybe I'm boring you guys a bit at the moment. The amount of times I've said sort of how important that depth is, and I just think that's one of those ones where it's. I think I'd be keeping hold of him really.
Okay, brilliant. Well, that brings a close to this afternoon roundup show for deadline day in the EFL. Obviously, there's still just over 7 hours to go in the transfer market, so do keep with footballleagueone.co.uk. There's plenty more deals to be done. Ben Wignall in particular will be working right up to the 11 o'clock deadline, so try and keep with him. I'm sure he'll be bringing out plenty of stories between now and then, and hopefully whoever you support, you'll be able to look back on this summer window with a little bit of excitement and pride for the rest of the season. But thanks for joining us, and we'll speak to you soon.